Okay, so it's almost time for season 2 of the Wheel of Time. The 1st of September is drawing closer really quickly. There's a lot of promotional material out there for us to wet our beaks, but some of us, myself included, were lukewarm at best about season 1. My final score for the season as a whole was around a 6. Now, we all know there were lots of changes from the books. Some of them were great. I really enjoyed a lot of them, Logain especially. The Tinkers, for the first time, made the Way of the Leaf sound like a viable way of actually living your life. Apart from the changes to the books, there were some challenges faced by the show. The late casting changes, the COVID-19 restrictions, the obvious meddling by studio executives shortening the lengths of episodes, lessening the number of episodes to begin with. It would have been incredibly difficult for the writers and the showrunners to actually get this thing across the line. So I'm willing to throw season 1 a bit of a bone because The Wheel of Time is just my favorite fantasy series of all time. And if you're watching this video, chances are you're a big fan as well. So whether you liked season 1 or not, I think there is enough hinted at for season 2 to get us all excited about what could happen. So this is a video of me listing some things that I'm really excited to see explored or expanded upon in season 2, based mostly on what I have seen in the trailer, but also just things that I'd wish to see. So here I am, starting my own personal hype train for season 2. I should say at the beginning of this video that I will be spoiling events between books 1 and 4, probably maybe hinting at book 5 a little bit, but certainly season 1 of the show. So if you haven't finished the show and those first 4 books, maybe pause the video, go watch and read those, and then come back and unpause. But otherwise, here is my list of things that I am super excited to see in season 2. Number 1, Peyton Fan's evolution. Peyton Fan is an incredibly interesting character from book 1. Yes, he's despicable and reprehensible and terrible, but he is a very powerful and mysterious force outside of the black and white of the light versus the dark. So he's a very interesting character to me. We know that he's going to play a pretty significant role in season 2 because we've already seen him in that bonus scene at the end of the final episode of season 1. He's at the Dark Friend Social and he very conveniently unveils himself. But we also know that from some of the promo material, he will be nailing a fade to a door. That famous scene in The Great Hunt where the boys and the Shinarans are chasing down Peyton Fan after he's stolen the Horn of Valia and the dagger from Feldara. In the books, they come across that village where they find this fade nailed to a door. All of that happens off page, and it just adds to the mystique and the menace of Peyton Fan. How did he manage to do this against a fade? The fades are portrayed as terrifying beings, as they should be in the show, which is great. So I'm very interested to see how new watchers and non-readers react to this scene. How did this peddler do this thing to a Madral? It is pretty impressive, to say the least. In the books, there's also a couple scenes where Peyton Fan is straight up scaring Shadowspawn, the Trollocs he's commanding, a group of dark friends that are traveling with him. Specifically, I think there was a scene in The Great Hunt shortly before Rand and Loyal and Huron sneak into Peyton Fan's camp to steal back the horn. There's a scene where he is scaring the bejesus out of a bunch of dark friends. So I'm really keen to see in season 2 how Peyton Fan deals with any kind of dark friends that he might have some influence over, and specifically also the Shadowspawn that he commands, leading to and beyond the nailing of a fade to a barn door. Number 2 is Rand's swordsmanship. Now, from the promo material, we've seen a fair few images of Rand showing up in what we believe to be Folmay, since there's a Sean Chan presence there, and facing off against Turak, who we've already also seen with a Heron Mark blade. So it's only logical to assume that we're going to get a Rand and Turak confrontation. Now, at the end of the Great Hunt, Rand beats Turak, either by chopping off his head or chopping Turak in half through the torso, but in the books, even with all the training scenes with Lan in the Eye of the World and in the Great Hunt itself, it did feel a little bit unearned. During the fight, Rand obviously has this moment of realization and desperation where he suddenly assumes the void and catches Turak by surprise, because Turak quickly surmises that Rand is not a true Blade Master. So when Rand does go into full void mode and does eventually beat Turak, he does have the element of surprise on his side. Now, in the show thus far, we have not seen Rand really train with the sword at all or do much with it. So I'm really hoping to see in season 2 how Rand can earn that moment against Turak. There are probably not going to be any Portal Stone worlds, so not a lot of Grom to fight. So hopefully Rand will face some Trollocs. Maybe slice and dice and perforate a couple Trollocs, maybe even a Fade before he faces Turak, just so that it can be a bit more believable. If I don't see any kind of Rand training or progression in his skill level with the sword, it would be very hard to believe that he is just going to beat a Seanchan Blade Master. Semi-related, in the shot of Rand standing facing off against Turak and his Seanchan guards, whether they're Deathwatch guards or not remains to be seen, but when he's standing there with his sword poking out above his shoulder, you can clearly see a heron mark on the hilt. So hopefully we get a scene where Rand gets branded with a heron on his palm. Now that's not going to happen when he beats Turak. In the books, that only happens when Rand stabs Ishamal in the chest. And just the possibility of Rand getting branded and the mechanics of how that would happen opens a whole other door that I don't need to expand on over here. You guess what I'm getting at, right? Then number 3, the Horn of Valir. Precious little is actually said about the Horn of Valir in Season 1. And I'm hoping that we get a nice, decent lore dump around the role of the Horn Sounder, the heroes of the Horn, maybe some descriptions of some of those heroes. Maybe that's even an avenue into talking about Talaran Riyadh. Bonus points if they talk about Arthur Hawkwing, who leads the Heroes of the Horn, because we've got so much Seanchan interaction here. Wouldn't it be incredible if Arthur Hawkwing is actually distinguishable by viewers and recognizable by the Seanchan, and if they could have a visible reaction to seeing him there? Oh, that would be oh so good. I wonder if they will even make Matt the Horn Sounder, but more on that in another point. Number 4 is Diasta. I love the game of houses. In theory, anyway. I remember reading the books previously and sometimes being a little put out by this sort of politicking, but I think in the show it can actually provide us with some good opportunities for even some humor. If Rand goes to Lord Barthanes' mansion after throwing a number of invitations in the fire and perplexing all the nobles in Cairhien, that would be funny to me. And when he's approached by the nobles at Barthanes' manor, especially some noble ladies who try to make some moves on him, then that is also opportunity for a fair bit of levity in an otherwise dark and pretty serious show. So really hoping we can get to see some of the maneuvering and some of the concepts of Diasta play out on screen. Now we know that Tom is not going to be in this season, so he's not there to coach Rand. But from the clues in the promotional material, it seems like Moiraine at least is in Cairhien. And being a Cairhenian noble herself and an Aes Sedai, she is extremely skilled in Diasta, as we see play out in the books as well. It's actually one of the main points for her and Tom to connect over because they have that in common. So hopefully Moiraine can coach Rand a bit if he's not too busy strangling her. Number 5, everything about the Aiel. We see already in the trailer and some of the behind-the-scenes footage and introductions to new cast members, we are getting at least Aviendha, Bane, and Chaiad, which is awesome. It is no secret to our regular podcast listeners that I love the Aiel. So we're getting Aviendha, which is great, obviously, but the introduction of Bane and Chaiad means that I'm hoping we will see some kind of link between Bane and Chaiad and Perrin, so that Bane and Chaiad can attach themselves to Fail like they do in the books later. I can't see any other reason to introduce Bane and Chaiad other than maybe they just were picking names and random Aiel. They're going to do something completely different with them, but that would be a pity. No sign of Gaul yet, and certainly not Ruach. So I'm hoping we get some male Aiel as well, so we can get some of that fun interplay and banter between the Maidens of the Spear and the other warrior societies. It's a source of much entertainment for me in the books. So hopefully we get to see that play out on screen because again, it'll bring some levity and the concept of Aiel humor is something that my friends and I joke about all the time. And then of course, just some general Aiel ass kickery. Blood Snow in season 1 was probably my favorite scene. I say probably, hands down my favorite scene in the first season. So hopefully we get a lot more Aiel combat. The choreography from Blood Snow was incredible. The glimpses we've gotten from the trailer look very acrobatic and very exaggerated, which if they can pull it off and not make it look like everyone's floating around on ropes, would be amazing because as we all know, the Aiel are incredible warriors and seeing them in action would be immensely satisfying. Number 6 is the White Cloaks. Yes, I'm serious. I want to see the White Cloaks develop into a serious threat. In the books, they are woefully undergunned against the magic users. But in the show, they've already been shown to be much more menacing and a lot more of a threat. It was a bit cheap how Eamon Volder burnt an Aes Sedai at the stake and she was helpless because she had her hands tied behind her back, but more around hands and channeling and that sort of thing in another point later. The point I'm trying to make here is I want the White Cloaks to be a real threat. In the books, Jeffrey Bornhold leads the troops at Falme, the White Cloak troops specifically at Falme, towards the battle in a perplexing strategy of basically just having them trot at the battle in a straight line, which for a supposedly renowned White Cloak general was a bit weird. So better battle tactics, better fighting from them. We know we get a lot of combat with them, unfortunately pitched sometimes against the Aiel, who they are just not going to beat. But there's also a glimpse of Perrin swinging, I hope, an axe at a white-haired White Cloak. Now, we also know from casting news that Dane Bornhold is also going to be in this season, and I'm hoping that the White Cloak that Perrin is attacking and hopefully killing, I can say as nicely as possible, these are not real people, I hope that Perrin actually kills Jeffrey Bornhold to give Dane Bornhold a real axe to grind with Perrin. It'll really fuel that hatred and that rivalry that is built up between them in the books. Which leads me to my next point, Perrin's development. I really hope they develop Perrin more in this season. In season 1, he was a little bit nowhere, and I guess he had to take a bit of a backseat for the other characters to really develop their motivations. But at least in the eye of the world, we got Elias to help coach Perrin into the whole wolf thing with communicating with them. And it happens very, very early for Perrin in the books, where in the show, it's hinted at quite strongly. Obviously, he has a confrontation with some wolves and they just lick him and run away. But in the trailer for season 2, we see Perrin facing a wolf that I'm hoping will be Hopper in a very desolate landscape reminiscent of some of the scenes we've seen Rand in the trailer as well, where he's tied up against the wheel in what everyone believes is Teleran Riyadh. Now, if that is the same desolate landscape where Perrin is facing wannabe Hopper, maybe that is the wolf dream. So if they can expand on Perrin's abilities beyond just talking to wolves, but maybe his prowess in Teleran Riyadh or the wolf dream as it may be, then that would be amazing. The World of Dreams, the Wolf Dream, Teleran Riyadh plays a huge role in the books. Much bigger than I remember actually. On my recent reread, I can see just how important it is. Everybody uses it. And to get Perrin up to the level that he needs to be to pull off some of the feats that he does later in the series would be incredible. Then the axe. There is a shot of Perrin riding with the Shinarans with a sword at his hip, which I hope gets thrown away very quickly. Perrin's whole axe versus hammer storyline in the books is a source of frustration for some people, but I quite like it, and it is central to Perrin's theme. Even in season 1 of the show, on Winter Night, the weapon he kills his wife with is an axe, which could be a reason why he's resisting using it at the moment, but it's such an integral part of his character that I would be very sad to see it go. Also makes more sense for him to transition from an axe to a hammer later in the story, because the two are much more similar weapons and probably used in a much more similar fighting style than a sword would. The battle between a sword and a hammer just seems nonsensical if you've read the books at all. Maybe to a non-reader it would make some sense, but it would be a very easy inclusion, and if they had to change from the axe to a sword, that would be perplexing. So here's me hoping the axe makes an appearance in season 2. And number 8 is The Forsaken. Lots of shots of Ishamal in promotional material. Obviously also lots of shots of Lanfear, which I'll get to in a minute. But I'm loving this portrayal of Ishamal in the show. Faris does an excellent job of presenting this cool, calculating, but arrogant and condescending Age of Legends Aes Sedai that Elan Moore and Tidroni probably would have been. Some book purists have been asking for a more ranting and raving version of Ishamal, but to me this one is a lot more scary. I am really enjoying this, and as much as it is a change from the books, if you can call it that, I actually really enjoy it. So more Ishamal, please. But the real star of the season 2 trailer has to be Lanfear, probably the most interesting of the Forsaken. She definitely has the Selene vibe going about her in the trailer, leaning into Rand's chest in a way that you would with the Protector. So if they're not going to be in the Portal Stone worlds, but Rand will be traveling with Selene, aka Lanfear, would be great if he could, like I said, protect her by maybe killing some Trollocs that she plants, and she would have access to them being one of the Forsaken. But I'm very interested to see just how far they lean into her specific, shall we say, quirks in terms of being completely obsessed with Lews Therin. Will her obsession become very obvious to the viewers right from the beginning? I hope so, because it is character defining for Lanfear in the books as well. And then do we get hints of other Forsaken? I mean, that would be amazing. Agenor, Belthamel, even Belal don't do an awful lot in the books that any of the other Forsaken couldn't do. So I wouldn't mind if they disappear already. We know that we're going to get a truncated version of the Forsaken anyway. I think the first season had 8 figurines when Stepan is talking about the Forsaken and their little figurines. So we know that they are going to be cut down, and I'm fine with that. If Asmodean is gone, let Loghain maybe take up the teaching role for Rand. I mean, Loghain can't channel anymore, but he has channeled a lot before. So elevating the relationship between Rand and Loghain would also be super exciting, because it would open up all the possibilities for their later relationship in the books. And it would also give Loghain something to do, a purpose, something to keep him motivated to keep on going instead of just becoming a hollow husk and wanting to die and eventually just dying. One of the other Forsaken in the books that makes an appearance relatively soon after the events of books 2 and 3 is Ravin. Do we maybe get a glimpse of Lord Gabriel in Camelin? That would be amazing. We already know that Verin is also going to be making an appearance in this season, and that opens the door for giving Egwene a certain stone ring terungrial and another opportunity for the show to explore Talaran Riyadh, which means we could very easily get a straight line to Moghedian spying, even just like in the background, sitting around a corner spying on everyone. That would be amazing. So bring me more Forsaken is what I'm saying. I'm excited to see which other Forsaken we might catch glimpses of, or even just mentions of in this season. Number 9 is Iguan's Ark. Now, watching Iguane get captured and collared is going to be painful. We all know that. It's painful in the books. It already looks painful in the trailer. She's all bloodied when she's wearing the collar when you see her there. But by the end of this season, if we do get to see her freed again from the Seanchan, Egwene would have gone through quite a development in terms of her channeling capabilities. There are a couple shots of Egwene channeling both in the tower, still using her hands quite a lot, but later when she's under attack from the Seanchan and they throw fireballs or some kind of fire weave at her, she spins up a shield very quickly and looking very confident as well. She looks placid as a pond when she conjures the shield in front of her, and it looks like Elaine running away in the background. So if she's collared, or when she's collared and coached, shall we say, by the Suldam and the Seanchan to use destructive battle weaves, by the end of this season, Egwene is going to be a force to be reckoned with, which is true to her character arc in the books. Speaking of Falme and the scene in which Egwene and Elaine are attacked by those Damane, it doesn't seem like Nynaeve is there. She doesn't seem to be present. In the Season 2 trailer, there's also a scene where Egwene is talking to what seems like, or it's cut like to look, with Elaine, talking about if our friends are in trouble, why would we not go to help them? But the friends that are in trouble from the Seanchan, at least, are not Elaine's friends, so it doesn't make sense for her to be saying that to Elaine. And then there's another scene where Egwene is hugging Nynaeve, but Nynaeve is not in her accepted dress or her novice whites. She's in her good old Two Rivers green stout wool. So I have a suspicion that Egwene might be saying goodbye to Nynaeve in that scene when they have their, warm embrace. Maybe Nynaeve doesn't make it to Falme at all. Maybe Nynaeve stays on at the tower and practices the sword with the warders, but more on that later. So what does that mean for Egwene and how she eventually escapes from the Seanchan? Nynaeve played an integral part in that in the books, but maybe Elaine can take the lead here? I would be okay with that, which is another great segue to the next thing I'm very excited about, Elaine. Now, we all know that Elaine is a powerful channeler in the books, and that is great. But the thing I actually love most about Elaine in the books is her deductive skills. She's often the one using her brain, trying to read between the lines, trying to figure out plans or people's motivations. It's a very endearing and often repeated skill set of hers that she leans on quite a lot. So if they lean on that or lean into that on the show, I would be ecstatic. They can really ham it up a bit, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but they can go full Enola Holmes, Otherwise, Elaine just becomes another pretty channeler. So giving her this distinct ability to really be a deductive ace would be awesome. It would be great to see, and just another great female character to add into the mix. Another one of Elaine's skills that I really enjoy in the books is her natural affinity for diplomacy and how to be a ruler. Obviously, she's learned a lot of that from her mother, being the Queen of Andor. But if she and Rand can meet in Falme, we know they're both there, or at least we suspect they're both there, judging from the Season 2 trailer. If they can meet and they can form a relationship and she can impart some of that knowledge, it might save Rand some heartache and some headache when he's trying to manage all the nations that he starts putting under his belt pretty soon after these events. Speaking of Elaine being in Falme, we've also seen Min in some promotional material in a room that looks a lot like the one in which a half-naked Rand is also lounging in the Season 2 trailer. So if Min is also in Falme, along with Elaine, and probably Avienda facing off against Sean-Chan and White Cloaks, that would mean all three of Rand's love interests are present in Falme at the same time. And that just means sparks, right? If we could get a scene with the four of them in the same room, and maybe Min even having a viewing, that would make my day, just to see how Rand deals with that. Number 11 is Matt. What are they going to do with Matt this season? We see in the Season 2 trailer Matt being confronted by the dagger from Shadow Logoth, but I don't think that has anything to do with a second healing like we get in the books. For starters, the dagger is not in the tower. Peyton Fan has the dagger, and I'm thinking this is probably Ishamael playing with Matt in Tel'aran'rhiod, in a dream shard or something of the like, because he's already appeared to all the Emons Fielders in their dreams, so there's precedent for that. We know that Peyton Fan and Ishamael are talking because Peyton Fan is at the Darkwind Social, so maybe Ishamael knows about the dagger and he's using it to tempt Matt in his dreams, to torment him, which is the only reason I can imagine Matt being sort of faced with the choice of reaching out for the dagger or not, like we see in the Season 2 trailer. But then at the end of Season 1, we also see Matt sneaking back into Tar Valon after abandoning his friends at the Waygate, disguised as Barney Harris. But what is Matt going to do in Tar Valon? Hopefully we get the scene of him fighting Gawain and or Galad. That would be amazing. I mean, it's an iconic scene from the books. If they leave that out of the show, I will be very, very disappointed, but time will tell. There is a quick flash of Matt striking downwards with what could be a quarterstaff, but it is such a quick flash. You cannot make out the weapon that he's using, but it does look like he's fighting, and that bodes well for the possibility of that scene. That said, with Matt in Tar Valon and not in Falme, he's only going to last there for so long before he's going to want to get out, much like he does in the books. And hopefully that means he'll make his way to some inns, maybe play some dice to make some coins. We already know he's got a gambling problem from Season 1, but hopefully we can start to see some of the effects of his extra special Taveran luck take effect in the taverns so he can start making some money. Maybe the flash of a fight that we see in the trailer is of a tavern patron and not of Galad or Gawain, but I'm hoping we get the Galad-Gawain fight and at least some gambling in Tar Valon. And then, like I said, I don't know. Does he make it all the way down to Falme to blow the horn of Valir? Do they even make Matt the horn sounder in the season? In the books, they don't do an awful lot with the fact that Matt was the horn sounder for a while. I mean, anyone really could blow the horn. So, yeah, who knows what will happen with Matt? He's a bit of a mystery to me at the moment. And that is both terrifying and exciting. Number 12, dual classing Nynaeve. Now, we've seen shots of Nynaeve training with the sword. It looks like with some warders, maybe even in the warder training yard. And we already know that she's befriended the warders in Season 1. So, look, Nynaeve is going to be a battle mage. She's got powerful weaves. No one can doubt that. We've seen her use them already in Season 1. But in the books, she is very quick to resort to physical violence. There's a number of times where she's either punching someone in the face or throwing something at Moghedian or trying to take on a Sereddit trainer and getting schooled in judo. But it's not a far-fetched idea to have Nynaeve use a sword, especially when you consider her block. Nynaeve can't channel at will. All her channeling in Season 1 has come at moments of desperation. I hope that they expound on her block and what that means and why she can't always channel, and then give her a good reason to want to use something like a sword or a knife or something to defend herself. She already killed a Trolloc in Season 1 in a very, very commando kind of way. So she's already shown an aptitude for hand-to-hand combat. Her temper is well documented, so I'm not mad about her fighting with a sword. So maybe we get a dual-class Nynaeve in Season 2. Plus her channeling in Season 1 is very overpowered. I mean, when she heals everyone after the Logain attempted escape, that was crazy. when she chases away Mush and Shin in the ways. I mean, that is also really crazy. Nynaeve's power level is incredibly high. We know that from the books, and we've actually seen evidence of that in the show. So if she was just walking around channeling all the time, she would be completely overpowered. So having her resort to some physical violence is the way to go for the show, I would say. So I agree with all that stuff, and I'm excited to see just how they convince us that Nynaeve can do anything with a sword. Number 13 is Rand's channeling. We've seen plenty of shots of Rand channeling in the Season 2 trailer, both with Selene, by himself in the inn. It looks like he actually sets whatever room he's sitting in on fire. So he's clearly struggling with learning how to control his new abilities. And he even speaks to Logain about it in the Season 2 trailer. So like I said before, it would be great if we can get Logain, actually coach him to sort of build up their relationship and give a credible teacher to Rand that is not a Forsaken. The pace at which the show is moving, I don't think anyone would buy the fact that a Forsaken would help Rand learn how to channel like Asmodean does in the books. Rand is only just channeling, and we're only just learning about the Forsaken. Viewers at this stage are still thinking that Ishamael might be the Dark One. So to then introduce the concept of Forsaken, and then on top of that, have Asmodean teach Rand how to channel would be a lot for non-readers to just absorb and accept. So Logain is an obvious choice to help him learn how to channel. I also hope that Selene is constantly trying to convince Rand to assume the oneness. We see scenes with Rand channeling and Selene standing right behind him. So hopefully she also gives him maybe some pointers from the bits and pieces that she knows from talking to male channelers, both in the Age of Legends and to the other Forsaken. But let's see how Rand's channeling goes. I hope that he learns to get some control over it and use it to some decent effect. In the early books, Rand's channeling is very random, and the only time he really channels effectively is by instinct. And then the last thing I'm looking forward to, probably not the last thing, but the last thing I will talk about on this video is Inktar. In the Darkfriend social scenes that we've seen a tunic underneath the table with a swooping black hawk on it, signifying some Saldaean is present at the Darkfriend social, and it would only make sense for our favorite Shinaran convert to be that person. Now in the books, Inktar's arc is incredibly sad, and I hope we get the screen time and the dialogue to explain why Inktar turned to the Shadow. And even though Rand isn't traveling with the Shinarans from Feldara to chase down Peyton Fan, and thereby ending up in Falme with Inktar and giving him the Shinaran send-off that brings me to tears every time I read it, but Perrin can easily fill that role as well. If we can just get that moment of redemption for Inktar, I think that will carry a lot of weight with both book readers and non-readers and first-time watchers, because it really is very special. And I think it's one of the very few, if not the only instances, it's not the only instance, but one of the very few instances in the books to show that someone that has turned to the Shadow can turn back. And I think that's an important message. And that's it. That's just off the top of the dome reasons why I am excited about Season 2 of The Wheel of Time. If you disagree with anything I said or have any corrections to some of the assumptions that I made or want to add anything to what I said, please let us know in the comments below. Hit the like and subscribe buttons. You guys know the deal. That helps the video get out there and have more people participate. In our podcast, which is the main channel through which we interact with our audience, we are always encouraging people to let us know what their thoughts and their theories and their corrections are, because we encourage that dialogue, and that is where we gain the most fun. It's why my friends and I started this channel and the podcast, is to talk to more Wheel of Time fans about the Wheel of Time and just nerd out about our favorite fantasy series. If you haven't yet, check out our podcast. It's a full spoiler reread companion. And like I said, it's full spoilers. So we talk about all the foreshadowing and all the little tidbits, all the little morsels and breadcrumbs that Robert Jordan sprinkled in the first couple of books that have massive repercussions in the later books. And we just have a grand old time nerding out about the Wheel of Time. And until we see each other next time, sleep well and wake.